Hello, my name's Jo Dyson. I'm a director in the Reading office and I'm responsible for apprenticeships in the Reading area of First Intuition. Now, this is a short podcast to give you the information which we gave out to employers who were able to attend our information day on the 17th of January. Now, the second podcast is really about how the different professional bodies are trying to meet the needs of the Trailblazer qualification. It's got the information as was given to us on the day, and you'll see throughout this there are a number of caveats because a lot of things are still in the process of being approved by the Skills Funding Agency, and it may be a little while before we actually have absolute finite details. But I hope you find this useful. So our first speaker was Alex Collins, who kindly attended from the ICAEW, and his contact details are on the slide in front of you. And we'll have a look at what he had to say. Now, firstly, Alex reminded us how the Trailblazers are assessed, and this is something I went through in my first podcast, so if you haven't seen that already, you might want to have a look. But basically, the apprentice initially signs up, so that's a tripartite agreement between the apprentice, his training provider, and of course you, the employer. So everybody knows what they're getting into. And then we start a period of on-programme assessment. Now, during this period, the apprentice spends 20% of his time in learning. And this is basically three elements. One, they'll take their professional exams. So in the case of ACA, that would be the CFAB exams. This is a level 4 apprenticeship sample. They also collect workplace evidence. So they're building up a portfolio of evidence that they can use later on, and they record this in their training log. And during this period, First Intuition would work with you as a mentor to help students collect the required information. Once they've completed the on-programme assessment, they would then have a sort of meeting between the employer, the apprentice and First Intuition or the training provider that you're using, and they would decide whether that apprentice is ready to pass the final hurdle. If they are, they will pass through the mythical gateway into the endpoint assessment. Now, the endpoint assessment has three elements, no matter what apprenticeship you're taking. It is a portfolio of workplace evidence based upon the evidence in the training log, but it's really the last 6 months of work that we're interested in here, and it'll be a lot more detailed than the training log. And a reflective statement, which is a statement prepared by the apprentice to meet certain criteria and show how they've developed, how they've learned skills and behaviours during their time on the apprenticeship. And finally, what's called their role simulation. That is a case study exam. Now, no matter what apprenticeship you're taking, that structure will stay broadly the same, but that technical content, the CFAB exams, the reflective statement and the role simulation may be different depending on the assessor that you're considering. Now, if you already have ICAEW trainees, you'll be familiar with this diagram. It just shows the papers as you progress through that professional qualification. So, if you wanted to take a level 4 apprenticeship, that is aimed at certificate level. So that's going to be the 6 papers at certificate level, so quite a bit to do there. And once the apprentice has completed those, and he's completed a minimum of 13 months on programme, he can move through the gateway to his endpoint assessment. And the ACA are applying to be an endpoint assessment organisation. And this means that they will design a case study which will be available to students who have completed those 6 certificate papers. And they will also provide an assessment structure to test that work with a reflective statement and also to review the student's portfolio. Now, also in the pipeline is a level 7 apprenticeship, and if this or when this meets approval, this would then include the whole of the professional qualification. Now, this means you have a choice. If you have an apprentice who is a school leaver or perhaps someone you're not too sure about, you might only want to commit for sort of an 18-month programme, so signing them on to a level 4 apprenticeship would be sensible. If you're sure about this apprentice, maybe they're a graduate with a solid background, you might say, well, actually, I'm quite happy to commit for the full 4 years. So you can sign them on to a level 7 apprenticeship. That programme lasts a maximum of 4 years, and the student would start at the certificate level, take the professional level papers, then the advanced level papers, and finally they would take an endpoint assessment. So there's only one endpoint assessment if you go straight into level 7. And that assessment will include the case study at the top there. So they'll actually be taking, as part of that endpoint exam, a qualification that they need to take anyway in order to be ACA qualified. The third option would be to sign a student up to the certificate level apprenticeship, so level 4. Let them take an endpoint assessment at that level, and if you're happy with the work and things are going well, they're enjoying working for you, you could then sign them onto a second apprenticeship, which would be the level 7. So that would be a smaller version of level 7 and would only need to take, say, 2 years to do the professional level papers and the advanced level papers, plus, of course, the endpoint assessment at the end of the advanced level. The downside to that, of course, is it's going to take a bit longer because you've got 2 lots of endpoint assessments to get through. So those are your options for ACA. As I say, the certificate level is pretty much ready to go. We're expecting that to start in September. The level 7 we are hoping will start in September, but it hasn't been fully approved yet, so watch this space. If you are interested in delivering apprenticeships for ACA, then you need to be an ACA authorised training employer, and that's the same as now. So if you want to do that, get in touch with Alex and he'll be able to help you and support you through that process of getting your business authorised. Now, next up, the AAT. Now, they weren't at our seminar, but let me give you the latest information as I understand it from them. They have a level 3 apprenticeship, which is ready to be delivered, so that could start anytime. Here at First Intuition, and I think many firms, we won't be offering that until the summer. So summer starts, can join a level 3 apprenticeship. This is going to take about 15 months. You have to complete the whole of the level 3 AAT qualification, and then you would move to the endpoint assessment. And the endpoint assessment at this level is a 60-minute interview, so not a reflective statement. A case study, now that's the synoptic exam which you need to take anyway to complete level 3, and of course the portfolio of evidence. You can then move on to level 4, which again is the usual level 4 qualification, and again the usual level 4 case study will count towards your endpoint assessment. The endpoint assessment in this case includes that reflective statement. If you have bright students, one option here might be to do some combined level 3 and 4, because if you were to sign an apprentice on to level 3 and then level 4, you're going to find it takes them probably approaching 2.5 to 3 years to get through both levels. So what you might want to do is some sort of combined course that gives them some of the knowledge from level 3, but actually allows them to complete level 4 in perhaps an 18-month programme, so that they're then ready to move on to further higher qualifications. You need to be careful with that, because we do know that quite a few students struggle with the jump from level 3 to level 4, so we'll have to give that a little bit of thought, but we're very happy to discuss that with you. And the AAT, like the ACA, have applied to be an endpoint assessment organisation, and I believe that they're quite a long way through that process. They're expecting to hear a final decision quite soon. Next up, CIMA. Now, Edward came from CIMA to give us an update on CIMA's proposals, and it's very similar to the other qualifications. They have a level 4 apprenticeship, which they expect to include all of the certificate papers, so that's 4 certificate papers. And they have applied to be an endpoint assessment organisation. Again, that application is pending, but they're expecting, as part of that, to deliver a new case study exam at level 4. So this means that students who completed a certificate paper would then have an additional exam to take. I would expect that exam will be very similar to the case studies that CIMA already offer at operational, management and strategic levels. There is also talk of a level 7 apprenticeship. Again, this isn't approved yet, but that would be the rest of the CIMA qualification, so operational, management and strategic. And again, because there already is a case study at the end of the strategic level, that would be taken as part of the endpoint assessment. We're waiting for more details on that, hence that slide's a little bit sparse, but watch this space. And again, with CIMA, you'd be able to do level 4 entry, then progressing to level 7 or level 7 direct entry, depending on your needs. From the ACCA, John Cunningham and Dorothy Wood came to tell us about the ACCA's exciting offer, and I've just summarised that as we go through these slides. Now, this diagram, which I think just fits on my paper, again summarises that structure of the new apprenticeship apprenticeship standard. So we have the on-programme assessment, and for ACCA this will be the first 3 knowledge papers, so FAB, FMA and FFA, or in old money the F1, F2, F3. And in addition to that, there will be this thing called Foundations in Practice module. This is an online module and it's accessed through My ACCA. So the idea is that the apprentice can sit in the workplace and maybe spend an hour or so each day over a number of weeks just accessing that module and working through it. It covers things like ethics, health and safety in the workplace, and sort of business standards, things like that. So quite useful that they've prepared that already for you. I don't think it's a large number of hours. It's equivalent to, you know, maybe a few hours a day over, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. And of course, they'll have to produce a training log, just like the other apprentices would. Once they're ready, we can put them through the gateway onto the endpoint assessment. Remember, this still has to take a minimum of 13 months. And the endpoint assessment for the ACCA will be role simulation, which is a case study exam, which again ACCA will be producing one of these, and a portfolio of workplace evidence and a reflective statement. So very similar sort of structure there. I believe the ACCA are also looking at level 7, and that will work in a similar way to the other qualifications. At level 7, then there already is, I believe, or there will be soon, a case study at the higher level papers of ACCA, so that will form part of the endpoint assessment. Again, we're waiting for that to be approved, so more on that as it becomes more definite, but you can see how it's shaping up. Now, one thing Dorothy was very keen to stress was the fact that the ACCA are very keen to have employer feedback. So if you do have some thoughts on this structure and you want to contribute, please do contact them using the email address on the next slide. The other thing to note, of course, is that the ACCA offer a fairly unique structure in that from their qualification, your apprentice could also go on to have an Oxford Brookes degree or even a new initiative, a master's degree from the University of London. So it's quite exciting there. And there are their contact details, so please do get in touch with them if you want to. Now, I hope you found that useful. It's quite a quick run through, and as I said, these things are changing all the time, but it really gives you a good feel for what these qualifications will look like. And we are very happy to come out and chat to you in more detail about what that really means for your business. It is a bit of a minefield, so please don't be afraid to get in touch and ask your questions. We don't think there are any silly questions in the area of apprenticeships. It's really difficult to get your head around it sometimes. I've put our contact details on that final slide for you. Please do. Alison is our new apprenticeship office coordinator, so she's going to be the person that will field your initial queries, and she'll probably forward them to the appropriate person who can deal with your area. Please do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you, and thank you for listening.